Adriana is asking, what causes hate in one's heart? Is it mainly our wrong ideas or resentment? Or is the enemy doing his part to drive us to it mentally and then heart-wise?
All right, Faye, are you ready to tackle this question? It's a very good question from Adriana.
I'd love to. Can you just read it one more time?
I think
Yeah, let's parse it.
someone else might have to hop in too. What causes hate in one's heart? Is it mainly our wrong ideas or resentment? Or is it the enemy doing his part to drive us to it mentally and then heart-wise?
So I'm going to try to answer this in between unhappy toddlers. But so from what I understand about hate is that the beginning of hate, the root cause of hate is actually I'm sorry. Why don't you guys kind of discuss it, and then I'll come back in.
All right.
Yes, no problem.
So like we were just talking about Satan, right? And how the demons use tongues to trap us and all. And I think maybe it's good to talk about a little bit where does the hate come from for us, right? So if we look at Jeremiah 17, verse 9, I think this is a very famous verse, that the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? So to me, what that's saying, like we're nowadays born with a lot of hate, deceit, wickedness in us, but it still had to come from somewhere. So like Satan just needs to tempt us, maybe just trigger us a little bit, and it's going to come out. But where did that come from there? And where did Satan come from? So if we have like 1 John 3, 8-9, this is Jesus speaking. He's talking about Satan. It says, this is John. 1 John 3, 8-9, it says, "He who sins is of the devil, for the devil has sinned from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. Whoever has been born of God does not sin, for his seed remains in him, and he cannot sin because he has been born of God." So to me, what this verse is saying, like our natural predisposition, the way we're going to be is to sin, to hate, to do wrong, to do bad things. And it's only by God intervening and really having us be born again, being converted, being of a different seed, not sort of the seed from Satan and Satan's line, but being of the lineage of God now, of Christ. That's the only way we can really get out of this bad cycle that all of us are in, of being hateful and doing these horrible things. It's already in us. It's not that it has to be planted in us. What's your thought, Tina?
So I think that's a really great answer. We definitely all have sin in us that, I think it's a matter of giving into. I think biblically speaking, I guess that's where my mind always goes is, I think there's a really great verse in 1 John chapter 2, verse 9. And it's talking about God's people, but he's calling out a sin that he sees in 1 John chapter 2, verse 9. And it reads, "He who says he is in the light and hates his brother is in darkness until now." And so the chapter goes on to say in verse 10, "But he that loves his brother abides in the light, and there is none occasion of stumbling in him." And verse 11, "But he that hates his brother is in darkness and walks in darkness and knows not wherever he goes, because the darkness has blinded his eyes." And so I really think that, hate is something it's such a terrible sin in that, it blinds us. It's darkness. And where does darkness come from? It comes from the devil. When God first made the earth, God said, "Let there be light." Before there was a sun, there was light. God in himself is light and truth. But yet this darkness that's in the world, that's from the enemy. That's falsehood. That's, every wicked thing. And so I think that, it's whether or not we choose the light or we choose to, be overcome by the darkness. And I think that, when it comes to hating people, I think that's it's just a lack of putting forth the effort sometimes to love people. Like it says in Matthew 24, the love of many shall wax cold. And I think when it comes to love, like, it takes patience and it takes effort to love sometimes, but you really have to put in that effort to love people, even, ones that are, frustrating or whatever it is. You need to make that effort and submit to God to love and yeah, to not give in to those negative feelings that lead to hate. And, like Jesus says, he hates his brother without cause is guilty of murder in essence, because hate is what leads to those terrible things that people do to other people.
And if I could just add to that also that, as you guys both talk about that hate, we were born in sin. Sin is a part of this world, and it's therefore a part of us as well. And so we have that sort of predisposition towards it. And then the question went on to say, is it mainly our wrong ideas or resentment? Well, those are things that then fuel what happens with that sin. So it's like the gun was already loaded with the sin, and the wrong ideas, the resentments, those are the things that pull the trigger on it and let it come out.
The fears, the coveting. Yeah.
And so it's Satan was the author of sin and hate, and hate for people like that. He created that and infected us with that. But we do have a choice to choose in those moments when we find ourselves facing with, the temptations, the resentments, the jealousies, those kinds of things. We have the choice to say, I'm not going to go that route. I'm not going to follow and buy into Satan's way of responding to that. I'm going to make the choice to respond to it the way God would respond to it, which is with a compassionate love and in a whole different approach.
And actually, that's a good lead into the next question, if we could.
Or were you able to
Yeah,
to
I'm
add?
Do we have favorite?
I'm listening.
Oh, great.
Do you want to add anything?
Oh yeah, well, I just wanted to mention that. So I mean, I think the common denominator with everything you guys are talking about is this idea that hate really originates from pride, because that's truly what started Satan off. He had all this pride, and then through pride, he developed the characteristic of hate. And pride had to be there in order for him to begin hating, because he was full of himself, so to speak. He wanted to be glorified. He wanted the honor that God was receiving. And God and Christ were the thing getting in the way of fulfilling that desire to add gasoline, I guess, to the fire of the pride that he had. So as a result, that individual or that Godhead was getting in between him and this self-actualization that he was looking for. And as a result of that, it made him hate God and hate Christ. And I think with us, whatever gets in the way of our desire to reach that fulfillment of our pride, getting absolutely submersed in all the glory of itself, is we begin to hate that thing. If it's principles, if it's commandments, if it's people, we actually end up hating those that get in the way of producing that unrelentless virus of pride. So whatever gets in the way of our pride, we begin to hate.
I think that's a really great point. Like,
Yeah,
I really
and just sorry.
I was just saying that I think that's spot on.
And then for references for those of you who don't know where to find what we're talking about Satan and his pride and all that, you can look at Isaiah 14 verses 12 to 15, and you can look at Ezekiel 28 starting at about verse 15. Both of those talking about Satan and his fall and his pride and how he's trying to drag us down with him.